Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Malone from Crossville High School, and in this video we're going to talk about how to break down AP style prompts. It's a skill that a lot of our students don't come into our classroom with, and it's a skill that they probably don't practice in a lot of contexts whatsoever. Something I think neglected a lot of times in our education today is that idea of etymology or morphology, the idea of breaking down words, prefixes, suffixes, root words, what part of a word is dependent and independent, and just that skill that a student has to take that prefix or suffix from word to word, and because they know what that prefix means, they can figure out other words. They become investigative when they read. We don't really do that anymore, and the reason is it's 2021 and we expect people to Google what words mean, and they may even get the breakdown in the Google results. And so I think we've moved away from that some, but to our own detriment, and certainly to our students, because when they need to break down an AP style prompt, a complex, long prompt, they can put that in Google and they're going to get a lot of search results. You've all done it, I've done it, but they're not going to get the answer to the question that they actually are asking, which is, what is this asking? What does this prompt want me to tell it? What does it want to know? And so we have to give them that skill. And I bring up that idea of morphology and prefixes and suffixes because I think a lot of that translates. Can we give students pieces of a prompt and that knowledge and understanding that they can carry with them from prompt to prompt to be more prepared? Typically, whenever I break down a prompt in my classroom, I break it down into 4 pieces. And I start with a specified time period. I think that's obvious. There's almost always a phrase in AP prompt that gives us that. History, of course, is chronological. It's all about sequence. And so I start with the time period, and I quickly move on to the center of the prompt. And what I mean by that is, what is the one word or small phrase that you could say, this is what this question's about? This question is about slavery. That's the scary part of a prompt, because a kid sees that, oh, this question's about slavery, and they start writing a paper on slavery. And it's only after they've written an entire topical essay about slavery that they realize, oh, this question wanted to know about how slavery affected the Southern economy before the Civil War. And so they've written their own paper, right? But we want them to identify that center of the prompt, and then we want them to move on to what I call the question, which is, what do they want to know about slavery? What does the prompt asking you specifically about this topic? And so a lot of people, I think, squish those together. I think it's very edifying for our students to split those up and to realize the difference there, so they're really laser focused on the direction of their paper. And then I mentioned prefixes a while ago. I call these prefixes. There are these prefixes, these phrases that we find between prompts, from prompt to prompt in AP, that are repeated over and over again. And if a student goes into a prompt knowing what that means, that's one part they don't have to think about, and it's just there, and they can start analyzing that prompt and ultimately writing their paper. We're going to break down 2 prompts very quickly, both from the 2018 AP exams, a DBQ prompt, one for APUSH for U.S. History, and then one for AP World. And we'll start with this one from AP U.S. History. Evaluate the relative importance of different causes for the expanding role of the United States in the world in the period from 1865 to 1910. Very quickly, I can identify the specific time period of this prompt. It's asking about the period from 1865 to 1910, post-Civil War. If I'm an APUSH student, I should immediately go to period 6. The nice thing about doing this and starting here, for one, AP gives us these really nice chunks of history, these periods, and their prompts follow those. And so a kid goes to period 6, the zeitgeist, the spirit, the movement of period 6, what's it about? The Gilded Age, imperialism, these different things we think about. And so not only does it allow them to understand the prompt better, they're probably already thinking of context when they write that essay. And so in the period from 1865 to 1910, period 6, what is the center of this prompt? What do we want to know about here? What's the one phrase or word we could break it down to? And I think it's pretty obvious that it's the expanding role of the United States in the world. It's a pretty long center of the prompt, but hopefully your students will look at that and realize that in that time period, probably asking about imperialism. Another reason it's nice to start with the time period. The expanding role of the United States, they can probably assume those documents are going to have to do with Cuba and the Philippines and the Spanish-American War and things such of that nature. So we're looking for imperialism at the center. Again, that's the scary part. Does my student just take off writing a paper about American imperialism and write an entire paper about the effects of it when that wasn't the question? And so the next step is, what is the question? What is this prompt asking you about America's expanding role? And we see here, it wants to know about the different causes. It wants to know what caused imperialism. So now their paper, thankfully, should be about the oversaturation of the American market, European competition, rather than the outcomes of imperialism. And so, again, Some teachers might want to make all of that one part. I think making that differentiation is helpful for a lot of your students. Maybe not your higher level students, but some students that might struggle breaking down these prompts. That's going to help them. And then you've got what I call the prefix. You've got this repeated part of so many prompts in AP history, and that is, this one is, evaluate the relative importance of. Don't assume that your students know what the word evaluate means. Words like evaluate, analyze, they're all through our standards. We write them on the board. We assume kids know, and they don't know. Make sure your kids know that evaluate means to judge or to assess something. Make sure they know to analyze something is to break something down, usually into its composite parts. And so evaluate, judge, or assess the importance. So they probably know what that means, right? But there's a modifier there, the relative importance. Evaluate the relative importance. Have that discussion with your kids. You know, what system in the world do we judge or assess how important things are related to how important other things are? Well, we rank them, right? My first favorite food is this. My second favorite food is this. And so very easily, very simply, it's asking me to rank, to judge how important different causes in this case are relative to the other. Now that thesis statement doesn't say the causes were. That thesis statement says the most important cause was, right? And it gives the whole part of that question to the person that's reading this essay. And so again, the reason I call this a prefix, they're going to find that from prompt to prompt. And so if they go into the prompt and don't have to think about that part, they don't even have to go there. They just look at that and say, this is a ranking question. This is one where I at least have to tell the most important in order to fully answer the question. And so now hopefully your students are going to write a paper in the correct time period about the correct topic, making sure that nuance is there. They're talking about the causes, not the effects or other things. And they understand that in doing so, they need to talk about the relative importance. They need to rank it. Let's do one more in AP World, still from the 2018 exam and still a DBQ question here. It asks, evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century. Again, I'm going to start out by identifying that specific time or place, 16th century. I oftentimes like to make sure my students remember to do that, and remember it's the 1500s. I believe, I don't teach AP World, I believe this is AP Period 4 in AP World. This is maritime trade. And so, again, hopefully get some in that zeitgeist and in the context. When I saw Portugal and then I read those years, I'm thinking about caravels and innovation and technology. And so hopefully that puts them there. Now they need to look for the center of the prompt. Now I think on this question in particular, I think it would be very easy, because it's so concise, to make this entire phrase here the center of the prompt. Portugal transforming maritime trade in the Indian Ocean. But I want you to hesitate to do that. I really want us to find that differentiation between the question and the center of the prompt, because it really helps your students. Because your students could end up writing a paper about the Indian Ocean that includes Portugal. And that's not the question. The question is about Portugal, and that is the center of the prompt. They're the main player here. They're the ones transforming trade. And so we want to make sure our students understand this question is about Portugal. Their paper is about Portugal. Now, what is the question? What do we want to know about Portugal? We want to know how that country transformed maritime trade in the Indian Ocean. So now your students are heading off in the right direction as they write this essay. Of course, they're in the right time period, but they're not writing a paper about trade in the Indian Ocean. They're writing a paper about Portugal and how they transformed trade in the Indian Ocean. Hopefully they have that laser focus. Now, another prefix, these are really the two you see, right? We've seen these two over and over again. Just like last time we saw evaluate the relative importance, there's that word evaluate again, to judge or assess. And here it's asking to evaluate the extent. And extent is a word, and it's helpful. Vocabulary helps our students. Extent is a word that means, how much does something cover, right? And in this case, if we're talking about evaluate the extent, we're talking about a hypothetical or an idea, it's how far does it go, right? How far does it go? Evaluate, judge, or assess, how far does it go? How much did Portugal transform maritime trade? And so always my students see this and they know to ask the question, how much? And I also remind them that means that their thesis statement needs an adverb, right? They need to be able to describe how much did it transform. Was it greatly? Was it moderately? Was it, barely? We need to know that. And so some kind of LY modifier there, right? And so now they should be in the right place. They go through these documents, and as they see a document, I believe one, is about safe passage control that Portugal had there in the Indian Ocean. Some of it's about Muslim traders still controlling much of the Indian Ocean maritime trade. And so they might land on, according to these documents, I don't think it was that big of a change. That's fine. They've got to defend that. The question is, evaluate that extent. How much? And now, as they write their paper, they're going in the correct direction. So, when we break down prompts, we want to give our kids those tools, those 4 parts. What is the specific time period? What's the center of the prompt? What do they want to know about that? And ultimately, is there a prefix that I already know what it means that I can carry in there with me and be able to analyze that prompt quickly and write a successful essay? I hope this helps. I hope it was beneficial for you. Thank you so much. Hope you'll have a great day.